Not yet. So, je voudrais saluer EduForm Afrique, qui a trouvé un moment pour venir à ce webinaire. J'espère que vous allez produire un petit reportage sur ces interactions très intéressantes et enrichissantes entre les pays africains, les différentes expériences fondamentales pour la qualité, dans ce cas-ci, la qualité de l'éducation et de l'enseignement supérieur. Merci beaucoup de votre participation.
Merci, merci, merci. Merci, merci. Je suis arrivé.
Bonjour à nouveau tous les collègues, tous les participants. Welcome colleagues, participants from different countries. Thank you so much for joining and for increasing always this community of ACQF here webinars. So we have a wide range of countries represented today. We are soon starting. I'm just checking if our colleagues from the African Union Commission have joined already. I know they have a meeting, an important meeting, and they might not be able.
Hi, Eduarda.
Hello, hello.
I'm here.
Hi, Emmanuel. I was looking for you. Good.
Thank you.
Good.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining, Emmanuel. So, Emmanuel, I will start now, and I will pass you the floor in 1 minute for your introductory welcoming remarks, if you don't mind. Just a few words to encourage everybody.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
Again, colleagues, participants from many different countries, welcome. Thank you so much for joining the 9th peer learning webinar of the ACQF community. It's already the 9th. My name is Eduarda Castelbranco. For those who don't know me, I'm the coordinator of the project working with the African Union Commission developing the African Continental Qualifications Framework, ACQF. We are really happy to be here with you. Many of you are already have participated in the past. Some of you are new, so we welcome all of you. Let me immediately pass then the floor to the representative of African Union Commission Education Division, Mr. Emmanuel, Chigozie Emmanuel. He will welcome us all and open this meeting. Thank you. Emmanuel,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Eduarda. And good morning, good afternoon, distinguished participants, depending on where we are joining from. Like Eduarda has mentioned, my name is Chigozie Emmanuel Okonkwo. I am the focal person for our AU-EU Education Initiative at the Education Division of the African Union Commission. And on behalf of my principal, the acting head of Education Division, Mr. Hambani Masheleni, it is my pleasure to welcome us all to this ACQF peer learning webinar. For us at the AUC, we are particularly delighted about this work package on the ACQF project because we believe that even as we develop the African Continental Qualification Framework, the importance of capacity development program on core themes of qualification frameworks and systems cannot be overemphasized. Hence, the need to continue to engage with stakeholders The overarching purpose being to boost engagement, for us to engage with stakeholders, member states, as well as to develop knowledge and create a common understanding on key concepts, the objectives, types, and operational instruments of both national and regional qualification frameworks. Permit me to note the very rich array of speakers on the agenda. Really, it speaks to the value that we place on this peer learning webinar. And of course, the hope of a rich and robust outcome. Colleagues, without preempting the discussions today, but permit me to just give a very brief overview of my thoughts on the state of quality assurance, being the subject of today's webinar. We agree that education cannot be fully defined in the absence of quality assurance, whereas we have come to accept that education as the powerful instrument of change that it is. We must also see that quality assurance processes as the key for sustenance of meaningful and relevant education. We must also acknowledge the role of quality assurance in this continuous process of sustaining the type of education that we want for our continent. In the last 2 decades, quality assurance in higher education has gained significant momentum. The rising public demand for performance of higher education institutions, the widening of access, and a clear call for greater efficiency, the need for quality assurance to drive national economies, and the better use of public resources for higher education, and the increasing cross-border provision are some of the major drivers of this momentum. We agree that the theme of today's discussion is indeed very, very critical and very apt. Ladies and gentlemen, the presence of the experts and the people from different backgrounds with their varied ideas and experience add to the success of this webinar. And I look forward to seeing a positive outcome from the webinar. Thank you so much. Over to you, Edwarda. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for your words and for also setting the scene and raising again our attention to the importance of quality assurance as part of the system that has to be in place for education, training, skills, lifelong learning to thrive and to be reinforced further. So fundamental. Thank you so much. Emmanuel, we know that you have another important meeting. So again, thank you for finding a moment and a way to be with us for these opening remarks. And
thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Edwarda.
And please convey our best regards to Mr. Masheleni and all the colleagues of Education Division.
That's right. They will hear. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. So now I just wanted to remind, as always, colleagues, that we have translation. As you know, you need to just click to choose the language of your preference. Besides, we would like also to just remind that you can keep your camera on. Of course, it's always a pleasure to see you, but please keep the sound off if you are not speaking. And also, if you did not give consent to recording when you registered, also please keep your camera off. So these are the very basic, usual kind of recommendations before such a webinar. So very briefly, as always, we have a very short introductory session. So this first session will look into these main 3 topics. So the agenda of today, of this peer learning webinar. So also very brief, just introduce the African experiences that will be shared also at this webinar, and contextualize why and in which and for which purpose these webinars are taking place. Because some of you are new to this to these exchanges, and we would like to keep you all abreast and informed about the context. And we would like really to welcome very much new participants from countries like, for example, Comor and other countries. They are participating for the first time. So you have all received the agenda. You have seen also the webinar website. We sent you this information. You could download the presentations, the agenda, and also other learning materials that we have uploaded in the webinar webpage. Today we have, as always, these 4 sessions, of which 3 are the substantive main sessions. Each session has approximately 30 minutes. And we would like also to keep 20 minutes at least in the final session for a good discussion and main conclusions, questions and answers. Let me then greet and welcome and thank very much our 3 brilliant speakers. As our colleague Emmanuel just said, we have really very high level speakers with us today. It's such a privilege. Today, so we will learn from 3 experiences, 2 of them in the domain of higher education, namely quality assurance in higher education. And then one looking at another domain that is, however, fundamental. It is early childhood education and development. So let me greet the Secretary General, Professor Bertrand Bachy, who is going to speak on behalf of CAMES. And as you will see from his presentation, CAMES is not only about higher education, it's an entire system. So thank you so much, Professor Bachy, for your time and for sharing your experience, expertise with us all. Then we will look at one case, country case, Senegal. And the Executive Secretary, Professor Lamine Gueye, representing ANAQ Sup, l'Autorité nationale d'assurance qualité de l'enseignement supérieur, de la recherche et de l'innovation, is also going to lead us into the strategy and policy of Senegal to develop quality assured higher education. And to finalize, to conclude, Mr. Moses Abiero, Program Manager, representing the Africa Early Childhood Network, is also going to share with us views, experiences, and perspectives about work being done to put together a common continental framework for good early childhood education and development, and also thinking and linking all this work with the African Continental Qualifications Framework. So we thank you very much in advance, our brilliant speakers today. It's a privilege. As always, as it was announced, let us just very briefly again present the context of these webinars of sharing knowledge, experiences, concrete experiences and perspectives. So the context is the African Continental Qualifications Framework in development. As you all know, the ACQF, African Continental Qualifications Framework, is an initiative of the African Union. It is backed by major African Union policies related with Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. And these policies towards which the ACQF brings a contribution or will bring a contribution, they relate to education, but also free trade and free movement of persons. So development of the ACQF started in September 2019 and will go on until end 2022. This process is supported by a program which is called Skills for Youth Employability Program, a contribution to CIFA technical cooperation. And it is working naturally in partnership with the African Union Commission, with regional economic communities and countries, the member states of the African Union. The ACQF policy and technical document with an action plan and a set of technical guidelines and tools, including also a website, is the package of planned outputs of this work. But also fundamental is the capacity development and networking component of this ACQF project. Let me also remind again the vision for the ACQF, a vision that has been discussed and presented from the start of this project in September 2019, the launch workshop that took place in Addis at the headquarters of the African Union. So based on the principles of inclusiveness of all levels of qualifications in sectors of education and training, the other principle is an innovation readiness, and finally, openness to stakeholders and users' needs and good practice from all regions. The ACQF aims to contribute to these four major objectives. The first is comparability, quality, and transparency of qualifications, and also support to lifelong learning. The second is to facilitate recognition of diplomas and certificates, and consequently, the mobility of learners and workers. The third one is to work in cooperation and complementarity with national and regional qualifications frameworks in Africa, supporting the creation of a common African education space. And the last one is to promote cooperation, referencing, alignment between qualifications frameworks, national, regional, in Africa and worldwide. We said earlier that the capacity development program is an important component element of this project. So in 2021, the capacity development program is going to work as a mix, a combination of modalities of learning for different needs, catering for different needs, different target groups. So we have then, as you see on the image, planned 5 peer learning webinars. This is the first of this series of 5, a conference in December, an in-depth training program also in December, and various activities in support to countries that are engaged or willing to start developing their national qualifications framework, or simply revising some elements that might have already been put in place, defined, conceptualized, and some additional work, some additional dialogue, analysis would be needed to give it a push further. So the ACQF team is here able to support you on demand. This is the planned journey into 2021 of the set of peer learning webinars. And as you can see, we this year would like to have a good complementarity of these 3 fundamental elements. From one side, national qualifications frameworks. Another element is quality assurance. And finally, recognition. So this idea of supporting or enhancing, boosting this complementarity, interplay, synergy is also justifies then the agenda of the webinars as you can see on the screen. So the first webinar took place already a month ago, 3rd of June. And today we have a good focus on quality assurance of higher education, but also the other side, the beginning of the pyramid, which is early childhood education and development. The next webinar will take place in July, and there the attention will go towards the interplay between TVET reforms and implementation of national qualifications frameworks, plus 2 additional topics. There will be registers, databases of qualifications as very important tools for transparency, for outreach to the end users. And finally, another important topic, as said earlier, recognition of qualifications. Then in September and October, we have then 2 additional webinars, of one of which the first, so 23rd of September, we'll be looking at the topic, very fundamental, let's say the DNA in a way of national qualifications frameworks, learning outcomes. And then we will enter into a more already targeted discussion about level descriptors and looking into what can be the ACQF level descriptors. We will also have a presentation then of sharing on quality assurance guidelines. Finally, in October, we will look at NQFs from a systemic view NQFs being part of national qualifications systems. And how to get there? The school curriculum survey that has been, that will soon, very soon start in just 2 weeks. It's also a project supported jointly by African Curriculum Association, CISA Curriculum Cluster and ACQF project will be presented, so the final results. And then also a discussion on the relationship between ACQF and the African Free Trade Area. I wanted also to mention very briefly, colleagues, that among those guidelines, the topics of the guidelines and related training modules that are going to be developed this year and part of next year. And these will be very important technical foundations of the future African Continental Qualifications Framework. So the topics are on your screen. So the first guideline will be looking at learning outcomes. The second at level descriptors. The third at referencing between national qualifications frameworks or regional and the ACQF criteria, processes, tools. The fourth guideline at validation of learning, the various mechanisms and policies that allow and promote better outcomes and processes of validation, namely recognition of prior learning, credit accumulation and transfer systems, and recognition of qualifications. The fifth guideline will be focusing on quality assurance. Then registration and databases of qualifications will be the topic of the sixth. A very important topic that is often left to the end, and it is monitoring and evaluation in the context of ACQF. So that this element of monitoring, evaluation, indicators, and analysis is immediately formulated in terms of a guideline. Communication and users outreach is the topic of the eighth guideline. Then the ninth guideline will explore innovation and technology in national qualifications frameworks and ACQF. And the 10th guideline will exactly look at qualifications in a systemic view, all the components of a national qualifications system. The NQF does not work alone. It works in a system. Finally, I'm getting close to the end of this brief initial presentation. The ACQF team has started also developing thematic briefs that can be used for self-learning. And the 8 thematic briefs that we have so far are covering the topics you can also see on the screen. So going from concepts and definitions related with this wide area of qualifications, frameworks and systems, competences, frameworks, level descriptors, quality assurance in technical vocational education and training, maybe sometimes a little bit less spread information than quality assurance and in higher education, where there is much more information, networks and councils working and disseminating information. Then regional qualifications frameworks, and ACQF is this type of qualifications framework, regional. The governance of national qualifications frameworks is another topic that we already have explored through a thematic brief. Then registration and databases of qualifications based on concrete experiences and recognition of prior learning. So these thematic briefs are available. 5 of them are already uploaded in this event web page of today. There will also be case studies, so to show more concretely how these various elements work in practice. And these are just examples of 3 of these guidelines. You can easily find them on the web page. From the previous webinar, we cannot go in detail, of course, but I just wanted to recall that on the 3rd of June, we had these 3 brilliant, very rich presentations, 3 rich experiences, very dynamic. Started with Seychelles. Well, the CEO, Mrs. Ernesta Fiona, CEO of Seychelles Qualifications Framework, has shared with us how the NQF has taken shape, has been established and further and developed as part of a national strategy to incorporate standards and quality in the national education and training system. Seychelles Qualifications Framework has already a long route of experience. We were well informed about the qualifications map, an important part of the qualifications framework, with, and we know all the architecture of 10 levels, with qualifications types, notional hours, and pathways. Over 100 qualifications are registered, and this is a national qualifications framework already aligned, following the procedures and criteria to the SADC qualifications framework. SADC, there is a small spelling mistake, apologies. Then we had also a very informative presentation by the CEO, Mr. Franz Gertz, about Namibia National Qualifications Framework. And Franz started by telling us what education in training is about. What are the purposes? It's about people, planet, change. And the purpose of the NQF is wide. It is to contribute to reform, to communicate, to redress, to quality assure, to articulate, and to promote progression and mobility. It is a framework also of 10 levels. It has, of course, also qualifications types, certificates, diplomas, degrees, defined in line also with NQF credits. The National Qualifications Authority was established according to the National Qualifications Act 1996. So as we can see, it's also a story with experience. The governance is based on a council with committees, technical committees, a secretariat, the CEO. The National Qualifications Agency has a wide range of functions, going from standard setting to evaluation and validation. And to complete, we had also a very interesting sharing by the CEO of the Kenya National Qualifications Authority, Dr. Eusebius Mukwana. Dr. Mukwana told us about this very important boost the country is giving to recognition of prior learning, whereby this recognition of prior learning is very well associated with the NQF and with the Kenyan National Qualifications Authority. So we had a very good overview about the objectives, the wider objectives of RPL in Kenya, as well as the current work being done towards implementation, so entering into implementation. So RPL, a tool for lifelong learning to empower individuals to self-determination, education, and better employment, helping people out of the informal and precarious employment. There is a paradox of shortage of relevant qualified workforce, while at the same time there is an island of skilled, experienced workers without proof qualification. So RPL can help dealing with this paradox. RPL is there to identify, assess, certify knowledge, skills, and competences, regardless where and how learning occurred. And this is based on standards, leading to part of full qualification. The RPL policy framework put in place is already well shaped and integrates, the purpose is to integrate RPL with the education and training system and the NQF. The roadmap for implementation is advancing. There is a package of tools and guides. A national committee has been appointed, and piloting started already in May, 19th of May, in three main sectors: motor vehicle mechanics, welding, and textile. And finally, we had a very interesting proof that RPL Kenya has very high level political support. And now, without further waiting, I would like immediately to invite the Secretary General of CAMES, Professor Bertrand Mbachi, to share his screen and share with us information and share with us the incredible experience, very wide approach of CAMES. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Professeur Mbachi. Vous avez la parole. Merci.
Merci bien, Eduarda. Je vous salue tous. Je vous remercie d'avoir porté l'attention à notre institution. Selon la commande, il était question que je vous parle du CAMES pour un partage et que je fasse un point sur le développement du LMD et de notre initiative en cours de renforcement du cadre de qualification, de certification professionnelle régionale. Et nous terminerons bien sûr par des perspectives et les synergies qu'il faut engager. Alors, je vous présente ici donc le sommaire. En guise d'introduction, le CAMES, le Conseil africain malgache pour l'enseignement supérieur, est constitué de 19 États membres. La cartographie qui est là assurée vous en donne les déterminants. C'est un organisme de coordination des problématiques de l'enseignement supérieur. C'est une agence de fait régionale d'assurance qualité et d'accréditation compte tenu de son périmètre d'action et de ses actions. Il constitue un modèle unique au monde qui permet...
It is a very unique model in the world. Now, what are our missions? To promote and to enhance the understanding and the solidarity between the member states, to establish cultural and scientific cooperation that is permanent between member states together, and to disseminate all university documents or research documents that are also to prepare the project of convention between the member states to conceive and to promote research institutes. So now, what are the different instances that we have? At the political level, we have the Council of Ministers, which is, of course, a political instance where we have the ministers of tertiary education, and we also have the technical side, which is the General Secretariat that I am right now. We also have the academic and scientific side or instance, and we also have here the General Consultative Committee, where you have the different representative of our public and private universities. We also have a Commission on Ethics and Deontology. And of course, here we are ensuring that all institutions are functioning well. We are promoting equality of chances, as well as the strengthening of trust between partners. We also implement 8 statutory programs for the missions that have been given unto us. We have the consultative inter-African committees. We also have the contest of human medicine aggregation, pharmacy. We also have here the the program of quality assurance. We also have the program of university Olympiads of OUC. We have the program of equivalence and recognition of different diplomas. We have the program Silhouette du CAMER. We will talk about it just in a moment. And this is where we look at the numeric side of our program. We also have a program of these different research thematics. And we have the Grande Chancellerie des Ordres Internationaux, which is where we are also having a network of technical and financial partners. Now, we developed a plan looking, of course, at all the challenges that we have in tertiary education that we identified when we came in 2011. Now, these are the different challenges. We have the insufficiency of investments in order to maintain the quality, and we have a lack of infrastructures. We have a very weak rate of support. We also have a very weak usage of the TIC. Other challenges, we have a lot of youth, qualified youth unemployment. We have also a very weak culture of assessment of all the role players in the mission, very weak systems of governance, a very weak culture of management of data and planning, counter performance of our tertiary institutions of education and research, and a very weak investment in equipment of the latest equipment in education and research. And in this context, then we had to come up with a plan. And this plan came in order to enhance a new dynamic that will speed up the transformation of CAMES as an institution, but also other tertiary education institutions that are members of the CAMES, because this strategic plan was inclusively adopted by all the tertiary education institutions, and it was also adopted by the ministers of education. These plan has, of course, the implementation of code of ethics and deontology, the modernization of the governance of CAMES, the program called Silhouette, the strengthening of quality, the support and value of training, research, and innovation, the development of different synergies between the different partners and member states of CAMES. So it is Abraham Lincoln that was said, if you believe education is costly, then try ignorance. And we want to promote the quality of education, even if it's costly, because mediocrity is even more expensive than quality. So we had to develop a number of of partnership with partners that I'm not going to mention here, lest I forget one of them, in order to accompany the member states and other institutions of tertiary education and research. And you have here the different instruments that are also used for the aggregation of the different systems of information, quality referential of CAMES for the assessment of training offers, also for the assessment of all programs of scientific research on referential of accreditation of different training in of a face-to-face, then also the guide of assessment of different teachers and researchers, and also the guide on the establishment of the CIAG. And we are also in information outreach of all role players, institutional role players, political decision makers, and also we are working with academics. We are looking at what is being done on a practical level and how we can, of course, accompany all these institutions. We are now busy with an advocacy, a very active advocacy towards all our partners in these programs, and we have a lot of platforms for these advocacy. We have the Summit of Head of States and Government. We have the Council of Ministers that meet at least once a year. We have the Regional Colloquium on Quality Assurance. We have the meeting of technical and financial partners at least once a year. We have the international meeting of private tertiary education institutions. We have the also the meeting of the General Consultative Committee that regroup all the representatives, and also our people from CAMES. CAMES, of course, has quite a number of legal instruments that were adopted by the Council of Ministers that allows CAMES to have a very legitimate action on the ground of a tertiary institution and research. I'm now going to talk to you about the implementation of the LMD in the CAMES space. I should tell you that this implementation and this adoption of the LMD, of course, came hand in hand with the status report that we had to do, and the countries decided with the Bologna movement, but also being conscious that there was a problem of training that was not allowing us to integrate a greater number of students in the workplace. Now, after almost 10 years, we are noting that there was an adoption and establishment of the LMD system in the CAMES space. Of course, not all the member states are at the very same level of implementation. And so we can say that those of Western Africa are a little bit in advance in comparison to those of Central African and Madagascar. And we have quite a number of operational issues that we have observed here, that the measures are not really materialized. We do not have enough training, and that is not allowing our students to be able to work in a very autonomous manner. We have a very weak communication and also the lack of mechanisms to follow up. And there is a non-appropriation, if I may say, of the LMD system by quite a number of actors. We can also add as weaknesses the non-rigorous respect of the different text of LMD. Some training programs do not respect the requirements of LMD. We have, of course, the lack of the market studies for certain professional areas. When we talk LMD, we are talking about quality, and we must have a dynamic to accompany all these. We need to go to make some assessments, and we have to look at a number of criterias that needs to be done as well. Now, after these very brief observation and results, when we talk about weaknesses, we should not, of course, be discouraged. We have to bounce back because all these aspects now become challenges that we need to face, and we have to see how we can ensure the role of a council to our or rather counselor to our member states in the operationalization rather of the LMD. We must very quickly avail to all our member states the second volume of the manual on how to build the new African space of tertiary or higher education. And we are now finalizing this second volume that will tell us what is needed to be able to succeed in the implementation of the LMD in the CAMES space. And there is also, of course, the guarantee of accreditation of training throughout the program, recognition and equivalence of different qualification in CAMES. It is also the importance of evaluation by other peers, because when you allow others to look into what you are doing, then you are allowing the quality of your work to be challenged and therefore to be maintained. So we, of course, have to look at promoting the reduction of the digital fracture within, through different positive effect of the program Silhouette. We need to accompany also the implementation of all national requirements and mechanisms for quality assurance, which of course will help in developing, supporting, and also controlling the quality of higher education. Other means to encourage sustainably this implementation is to encourage the teachers and the researchers to have a higher implication in the functioning of the LMD. We need for that to introduce new pedagogical paradigms that are linked to LMD, new assessment criteria of our teachers and researchers, the assessment of the teaching and learning, but also the service to the university community and to the society as well. We also, of course, have the advocacy with a number of partners and role players. So CAMES finally is a platform and a framework of qualification and certification, but in the context of the LMD that is not able to meet its strategic objectives in the context of the very high youth unemployment, in the context of the vision of the Africa that we want. I believe it is important for us to strengthen this regional framework of certification. Now, this framework, of course, quality assurance is really the basis of this framework. And this framework is fundamentally, supported by three pillars. You have the PRED, and then you have the CCI, and also the aggregation context. Now, this framework is based on professionalization of the different trainings that are linked, of course, to the different sectors of production. These contribute also at a better taking account of the question of how the learners will be employable after the training. And of course, this also contributes to the strengthening of LMD and allows to better respond to the different things that will allow the member states to really be fully functional in the CAMES space. This also allows to have, of course, a holistic vision of the education system and to strengthen the link with the sectors of production. We also need a pilot study that has already been done, and that will allow to have a better dynamic at the national level to look at the institutional technical capacities. Now, after saying all this, we, of course, are in a very global world, and we have to talk about order, because order is part and parcel of quality, and CAMES supports a process that takes into account three levels of quality assurance, and that is the national level, the regional level, and the continental level, or the African level. The framework of professional certification has to be based upon a very robust system of quality assurance and accreditation. And of course, all these are elements of these Pan-African framework of quality assurance. Now, in terms of perspectives, we are going to support our vision in order to have the approbation or approval of the head of states when we are going to have the summit in Dakar in this year, 2021. We support, of course, the articulation of different roles and responsibilities of actors. We do not want to go directly from the continental to the national, but we have to go through the regional level that allows to structure or to better structure what we do, and also to prevent the different group dynamics. And we, of course, are all in for the strengthening of synergies. And we have, of course, Appui CAMES that is open in order to look at all those who have interests into the development of higher education and also research in contribution of the development of our member states. Now, as a means of conclusion, I would like to send you back to the thought of Leon Tolstoy that said that the two most powerful warriors are patience and time. Do not forget that the great endeavors do take time, and that there's not overnight success. So when we want to touch the social space through higher education and research, we need these two warriors. And I would like to thank you for your very patient attention. Thank you very much, Professor Mbachi, for your advocacy, because you effectively made a very strong advocacy in your presentation, and you have informed us on all the efforts and the different dimensions of the portfolio of the CAMES activities in order to go towards a future where higher education and quality and employability and the needs of corporations are really well articulated. Thank you very much, Professor Mbachi, for your perspectives and for this final note on the value and the importance of time and patience in order to allow these different dynamics to mature. And I would like to say, Professor Mbachi, that your presentation already has a certain impact. We see, for example, Madame Vanda da Costa, that represents the higher education of Sao Tome and Principe, that would like to become a member of CAMES. So that she would like to manifest the interest of Sao Tome and Principe to become a member of CAMES, and would like to know how this interest could be formalized. So that is already a very interesting reaction to the presentation that you've made. I would like also to, j'aimerais
your questions or your suggestions in the chat box. It's a very nice, excellent space to gather different comments, different reactions. Okay. I see that there are some notes, some comments about the interpretation in Portuguese language that needs to be coordinated. So the representative from Guinea-Bissau is making a point about the need to better coordinate, please, the interpreters in Portuguese language. That's important. And thank you very much, everyone, for your congratulations and appreciation expressed regarding this presentation. We will have a space, as you know, at the end of this webinar, where we have questions and we have the possibility to really go into more details discussion and exploring questions of interest also in relationship with today and the future, since we are living a moment of great transformations of our world, and the future is already here. Professeur Mbatchi, donc nous vous remercions beaucoup encore une fois.
Mbatchi, thank you so very much one more time. And we would like now to give the floor to Professor Dlamini, that is the Executive Secretary of
nous éclairer.
That is also going to give us a presentation on the strategy, the policy on quality of higher education in Senegal.
Mr. Jonas Redwood, if you don't mind muting so that our dear speaker can speak. Thank you. Merci, professeur. Vous avez la parole. Merci beaucoup d'avance.
Merci, Eduarda. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Eduarda. Thank you for the invitation and the organization of this and of course, all those that come from CAMES and the representative of the African Network on childhood education and all that participating in this webinar. We are going to share with you, of course, the experience of Senegal and all the activities undertaken to enhance the quality of higher education, but also the relationship with all other structures of quality assurance in Africa. I would like to share this experience through this plan. First of all, the introduction, and also
ensuite les missions et l'organisation de cette autorité nationale d'assurance qualité, les différentes réalisations faites au niveau national et leur impact. Ensuite, nous vous parlerons des activités menées à l'international, notamment le partenariat et la mise en place de réseaux. Et je finirai par les défis et perspectives qui se dessinent pour le Sénégal et notamment pour l'ANAQ-Sup. Cette autorité,
this authority, national authority on quality assurance, was undertaken in Senegal in the context where we have so many students and qualified that wanted to come into tertiary education. We have quite a number of them coming from secondary school and that wants to get into tertiary education, and also came through a very great reform that was very inclusive in 2012 throughout national consultation of higher education that had as a result a decision made by the head of states with a very clear policy for higher education in Senegal. But this context is also characterized by really the commitment of partners in order to accompany Senegal, of course, technical and financial partners that understood the necessity of these reforms. We're talking about the World Bank, UMUA, and EAD, and other partners such as UNESCO. This context was also characterized about the decision by Senegal to create and build the new universities online and on-site.
Deux universités présentielles qui ont été créées dans le cadre de ces réformes et de prise de décision face à la massification des étudiants. Au moment où l'État mettait en place ces nouvelles universités, le secteur privé de l'enseignement supérieur aussi s'est développé de manière assez importante avec l'ouverture d'établissements d'enseignement supérieur privés par des promoteurs. Ce qui montre aussi le besoin extrêmement important des acteurs d'avoir une démarche et aussi des assurances que la qualité est prise en compte dans le cadre de ces réformes, dans le cadre de cette massification des étudiants, mais aussi dans cette multiplication d'ouverture d'établissements. Donc, les acteurs bénéficiaires de l'enseignement supérieur étaient très attentifs à la démarche qualité. C'est dans ce contexte donc que le Sénégal a mis en place son dispositif national d'assurance qualité après une analyse de ce contexte national et un accompagnement d'organismes internationaux. Le Sénégal a analysé aussi les différentes options en matière d'enseignement supérieur tout en menant ces réformes aussi bien sur le plan pédagogique, académique, que sur le plan de la gouvernance, illustré par des textes qui ont été pris à un très haut niveau, des réformes de loi, des prises de nouveaux décrets, mais aussi l'analyse de bonnes pratiques sur le plan national et international pour permettre d'avoir une crédibilité de la structure chargée de l'assurance qualité, de mettre en place son autonomie et sa transparence. Et c'est cela qui a fait que l'ANAQ-Sup a été mise en place avec une option forte du Sénégal qui est d'en faire une autorité nationale d'assurance qualité couvrant aussi bien le public que le privé. Voilà, cette structure donc a été créée en 2012 avec une décision de lui doter d'une autonomie financière dans son fonctionnement et dans sa gestion, de mettre en place des standards minimums à partir des référentiels d'évaluation. La compétence couvrait le niveau national, mais aussi l'ensemble des établissements publics et privés, et ça c'est extrêmement important. C'est la même structure qui prend en charge l'assurance qualité, l'évaluation des établissements publics et privés. Le financement est essentiellement basé sur une dotation étatique, une dotation annuelle, mais aussi avec une réforme du décret de l'ANAQ-Sup, le partage des coûts. Les établissements contribuent au processus d'évaluation. Les décisions sont prises au niveau du conseil scientifique de l'ANAQ-Sup, organe sur lequel nous allons revenir. Des rapports annuels sont produits de manière obligatoire à partir de la réglementation des textes de l'ANAQ-Sup et les évaluations sont rendues publiques, les résultats des évaluations. De même, les rapports sont transmis aux autorités et rendus publics. Au début de la mise en place de l'ANAQ-Sup, c'était principalement les formations qui étaient visées. Et par la suite, après 6 ans de fonctionnement, en 2018, le décret a été réformé avec de nouvelles missions de l'ANAQ-Sup qui est d'évaluer aussi la recherche et l'innovation. Les buts, c'est d'améliorer la gouvernance des établissements d'enseignement supérieur, de l'enseignement supérieur de manière générale, le développement de la culture de l'évaluation et de l'assurance qualité, l'amélioration continue de la qualité dans les établissements d'enseignement supérieur, mais aussi témoigner de manière continue sur le niveau de la qualité dans les établissements d'enseignement supérieur. Voilà, les missions de l'ANAQ-Sup, telles que déclinées par les textes réglementaires, notamment le décret 2018-1959 du 7 novembre 2018 portant création, organisation et fonctionnement de l'ANAQ-Sup, précédé par un autre décret qui a créé l'ANAQ-Sup, c'est d'abord de définir des standards de qualité à respecter dans les établissements d'enseignement supérieur, leurs filières et leurs programmes, les centres et organismes de recherche et d'innovation. Ça montre la couverture d'informations de la recherche et de l'innovation. Concevoir et mettre en place un mécanisme d'assurance qualité compatible avec les objectifs et les exigences de l'enseignement supérieur de la recherche et de l'innovation. Mettre en place des procédures formelles et identification des critères d'évaluation, donner un avis technique au ministère et notamment les ministères chargés de l'enseignement supérieur, de la recherche et de l'innovation sur les demandes d'habilitation des établissements d'enseignement supérieur à délivrer des diplômes, évaluer de manière périodique ces établissements d'enseignement supérieur, mais aussi les organismes de recherche et d'innovation en vue de leur habilitation, accréditation, processus qui est devenu obligatoire au Sénégal. L'ensemble des établissements doivent être habilités par le ministère chargé de l'enseignement supérieur. L'autre mission importante de l'ANAQ-Sup, c'est aussi d'accompagner les établissements dans la mise en place de leurs dispositifs internes d'assurance qualité, les SIAC, mais aussi dans la conduite de leurs procédures d'auto-évaluation avant de recevoir la mission d'évaluation externe. Afin d'accomplir ces missions, l'ANAQ-Sup comprend 3 organes. Un conseil d'administration chargé du pilotage politique, représentant le gouvernement, la présidence de la République, le secrétariat général, l'ensemble des ministères impliqués dans le processus de l'éducation, de l'enseignement supérieur, la fonction publique, mais aussi les parents d'élèves et les employeurs. Ces différentes autorités sont représentées dans le conseil d'administration de l'ANAQ-Sup. Ensuite, il y a le conseil scientifique, qui est l'organe de délibération scientifique sur les évaluations, composé d'autorités dont l'expérience est reconnue dans le domaine de l'enseignement supérieur, de la recherche et de l'innovation. Souvent, c'est d'anciens recteurs d'université, d'anciens doyens de faculté. Le secrétaire exécutif est membre aussi de ce conseil scientifique. À côté de ces 2 organes, il y a le secrétariat exécutif qui assure maintenant le fonctionnement régulier, quotidien de l'ANAQ-Sup. Le personnel comporte du personnel permanent avec le secrétariat exécutif et les 3 divisions techniques. Une division chargée des établissements d'enseignement supérieur public, une division chargée des établissements privés, et une nouvelle division qui est chargée de la recherche. L'ANAQ-Sup fait appel de manière assez importante à des experts évaluateurs, qu'on dit experts évaluateurs externes, composés d'enseignants-chercheurs, mais aussi de professionnels issus du milieu de l'entreprise. Ces experts, aussi bien universitaires que professionnels, sont formés à l'assurance qualité après le recrutement par un appel à manifestation d'intérêt. Le financement de l'ANAQ-Sup, depuis sa création jusqu'à maintenant, est donc issu d'une subvention étatique, mais aussi l'appui de partenaires tels que la Banque mondiale, l'UNESCO, l'USAID aussi. Les établissements qui sont évalués contribuent aux frais d'évaluation. Les activités réalisées depuis 2012 jusqu'à maintenant, donc, d'abord, il y a les activités de mise en place de l'ANAQ-Sup qui a pris du temps, c'est normal, parce qu'il n'y avait pas avant l'ANAQ-Sup d'organes chargés de l'évaluation et d'instaurer cette culture de l'assurance qualité dans l'enseignement supérieur. Donc, mettre en place les organes de gouvernance, mettre en place l'organigramme, le faire valider et recruter le personnel par appel à candidature, et ça, l'ensemble du personnel de l'ANAQ-Sup est recruté sur la base d'un appel à candidature, la mobilisation des moyens nécessaires au fonctionnement, l'élaboration des documents de gestion de l'ANAQ-Sup, construction et consolidation de l'identité de l'ANAQ-Sup par une communication à l'échelle nationale, mais aussi créer l'environnement numérique de travail nécessaire au fonctionnement de l'ANAQ-Sup. Une autre étape du fonctionnement de l'ANAQ-Sup, d'autres types d'activités, c'est l'élaboration des outils d'évaluation. Évidemment, c'est extrêmement important, nécessitant une approche inclusive et ayant pris beaucoup de temps et de mobilisation de ressources humaines. C'est notamment la mise en place des référentiels. Le référentiel d'évaluation institutionnelle, le référentiel d'évaluation des programmes, le référentiel d'évaluation des écoles doctorales, le référentiel d'évaluation des programmes de médecine et de sciences de la santé, le référentiel d'évaluation institutionnelle des formations à distance, le référentiel d'évaluation des programmes de formation à distance, le guide d'évaluation, le guide d'évaluation, d'auto-évaluation, le guide d'évaluation externe, mais aussi les documents de recours, parce que les établissements peuvent faire recours après une décision du conseil scientifique, et aussi la charge d'études qui intéresse l'ensemble des acteurs qui travaillent avec l'ANAQ-Sup ou dans l'ANAQ-Sup. Ensuite, un autre type d'activité, c'est évidemment le développement de la culture de l'assurance qualité. On sait bien qu'avoir les outils, c'est important, avoir les moyens, c'est important, avoir un dispositif de ressources humaines, mais il est essentiel que les acteurs s'approprient de l'assurance qualité. Et cela se fait par un développement de la culture de l'assurance qualité. Il y a eu beaucoup de rencontres de partage, de validation, d'appui et de formation, et nous continuons à le faire. L'ANAQ-Sup organise de manière périodique des rencontres avec les établissements d'enseignement supérieur, avec les acteurs de l'éducation, tels que les parents d'élèves, la société civile. Donc, il y a eu d'abord une étape de sensibilisation, de formation, mais cela continue. Les étudiants, les syndicats, la société civile, la presse. Et ensuite, il y a eu l'installation des cellules internes d'assurance qualité dans les différents établissements d'enseignement supérieur, aussi bien publics que privés. Recruter et former les experts externes, 215 experts formés, dont 135 académiques et 80
expert trend in 185 countries. You see, the report is 1/3 capacity building for in institutional capacity building and evaluation. Here is the essential, the support from the structures, the practice of external analysis. Once the system has been put in place, there's been a pilot program before it being generalized. And also you can see that essentially it is not just important to evaluate, but we need to follow the recommendation for the improvement of quality, which takes time. And the two pilot program was agriculture and IT, and it was followed with the recommendations. And after these pilot recommendations or assessment, we are doing it a bit more upscaled. And here the statistics to date. First of all, on the institutional assessment in order to rehabilitate, and also I'll speak to you on the assessment of programs. Now, in overall, the number of candidates from the request of rehabilitation on the institutional level and the request sent to the ministry sent this application to ANAQ-Sup. Then we do the assessment of the process. We give our opinion. And we had 294 receivable application. 12 are universities and some are technical colleges and some are private. So you will see that the number in the private is very high. So the number of evaluation, it is so the public, it is 11. So the number of agreement was 115, 7 public institutions and 100 of private, so which was sent to the scientific board so that the internal process and external process was followed before giving the view to the scientific board. Now it was 68% success rate on 115 institutions that applied. So we need to note that for the public institutions, it is 100% and 66% for the private sectors, which need to be improved. So a receivable program is 825. So 825 programs, of which the application was receivable, private was 284, the number of application was 109, because the assessment, when the process has started and assessment is not finished, we are not counting that. So we have 201 from the public sector and 302 from the private accredited programs, 215, and which gives us a rate of 60% in overall and 82% for the public and 45% for the private. So the average rate, which is acceptable. So in terms of production and management of knowledge, we do it by organizing training for the agent as well for the internal officers, and we also do it through the participation at the workshop nationally and internationally, and also meetings for good practice sharing among CIQ of the private and public, and organization of International Forum on Quality Assurance in 2015, which had to reproduce in 2020, but the COVID-19 stopped us from organizing it. We have as well done particular studies, especially on the position of professionalization with the support from UNESCO. And also we produce annual report on the quality of education, which we send to the Ministry of Higher Learning. And also the report on a F4AD we're done, because when COVID started, we pulled together all the leaders of higher education through webinars to see their attitude of resilience toward the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, and which is very important for the development of FOAD in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. As well, we did a self-assessment, which is very important, that an NEC be evaluated by committee of international experts after 5 years from inception, and the result was very good with relevant recommendation. Now let's look at the impact on the national level, which is, first of all, the development of the culture of assessment and the quality, which is quite important in Senegal, because it is important that we manage the internal quality, but also what is important is to go to the institutions that look into the quality, and because the testimonial to the quality and the practice strengthen that trust of the actors and the parents, and as well to improve the framework, because when we do the assessment, we see also that it is important that ANAC SUP takes the leadership, so that the ministry will be able to reform. For instance, since 2015, we have the decree law of 2015-26 on universities. We also support the other structures in order to improve on the quality of education. For instance, the 3P, 3FPT, we are also in partnership with the National Ministry of Education, because it is important that we have this collaboration and approach on the education as overhaul, and not only on higher learning, higher education. So we also encourage the harmonization of programs, of training programs, and with other stakeholders, even with the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Public Works, and so on. And we work also on harmonization of the program in ITC, to take it on the national level, because sometimes there's a divergence among universities or private institutions, and the minimum is very important, and we are working on it. And recently, there've been a very important communication.
Évidemment, il est important quand on gère la qualité au niveau national de s'ouvrir à l'extérieur, de ne pas s'enfermer, parce que la qualité n'est pas une affaire nationale, c'est une affaire internationale.
Because the education is an international matter, not only local matter. It follows international logic. So we understood this as an ANAC-SUP, and we open ourselves to the international world. So we signed a partnership agreement quickly with Guinea, with Gambia, with Mali, with Mauritania, with Quebec, and as well with High Commission for Refugees in Senegal. So, which is very important. So we've done networking. We have worked on that. It is important that we pull our strength together to strengthen quality on the regional level and on the continental level. So ANAC-SUP contributed on the establishment of national network, regional network of quality assurance, which comprises of Togo, Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, and these are associated members, and Mauritania as well is part of this network, and Senegal is on this network called RAFANAG, and we are presiding it. So we encourage sharing of good practice or best practices. Also, we have a Francophone network on agency of quality for the higher learning institutions, and we also work also on. We are part of the African Quality Assurance Network. We are part of the SHARE and more. So what are the challenges and the way forward? In a few years, in about 10 years, we have done a lot of efforts, especially in the assessment, the culture of quality assurance and the work on the international scale. And as well, the challenges are there when you are in this line. There is a need to create a synergy and network the different initiative on quality assurance on the higher learning in Africa. We also need to have sustainable activities in different initiatives and projects in Africa. We also need to have collaboration among different blocks of Africa, especially on the language level. And this will strengthen assurance, quality assurance. We need as well to harmonize policies and practices on quality assurance. It is also faced with the challenge of a pedagogical transformation linked to the COVID-19. We also need to constitute an African space, efficient African space for quality assurance, with the definition of roles and responsibilities at all levels, that may be institutional, national, and so on. So, but even if there was no crisis of COVID-19, it is a need in Africa and all over the world. We need really to look into this aspect. So at all levels, responsibilities will have to be defined on decision level, national, sub-regional, and continental. We need to work on the development of human resources and financial resources, because without human resources, we cannot work properly, and we need to really mobilize resources. And this is what I wanted to present. In conclusion, the Senegal took, in terms of reform, a very important decision, which supported the ANAQ-Sup. And we've been able to work even in the region, sub-region of ECOWAS. And this has brought credibility of the procedures on the global practices. So that's why I say it was important. So the assurance quality, it is an opportunity for the education institutions to keep improving with the text. So it is important to put in place the contract of performance. We need to collaborate among institutions and the state. We need to support. It's important that we support so that the structure of quality assurance must be put on the table. And we also need to accept the application and acceptance on different mechanisms. We also need an engagement, professional engagement of experts. We need to collaborate and have partnership and network. So this is what I wanted to present, our experience in Senegal, and I remain available for any question, and I thank you.
Merci beaucoup, professeur Lamine Gueye, pour cette présentation extrêmement riche, informative et très systémique. Vous avez donc éclairé sur tant d'éléments qui seront certainement fort intéressants, pertinents pour tout pays, intéressé aussi dans la création d'une
every country that is interested in the organization of the quality assurance of higher education or just education in general. And I would like to really thank you for this. We have quite a number of questions in our chat, and I believe that it would be quite interesting to answer a few of these questions. I've taken down a number of questions. Madame Jaroufal, representing a very important association of technical education. The question is, how can you ensure the quality of online training and also digital certificates that are now delivered in that are very spread right now? How can you ensure these the quality of these? And if Professor Lamine, another question from Madame Vanda da Costa, that is direct from Sao Tome and Principe. And then a very direct question: how do the results of assessment of the ANAQ-SUP, for example, how are they used? How do you take measures from those? There are other questions, but maybe if you can start by answering these two. Thank you very much, Eduarda, and thank you to those who asked the questions, for the interest also shown to our presentation. First of all, the quality of online training. I believe that is very important. We have to develop online training, but the quality must be there, and it must be as good as an on-site training, even better. Why not? If we use the new technology. So our first approach is to have all the references of these evaluation or assessment, and we do have those. We also have the referential to evaluate the programs one after the other, whether it is a bachelor or if it is a master's degree. Now, the Senegalese position is very favorable to the promotion of these training, whether distance or on-site. I believe that is very important for evaluation to take place. So we are making sure and even putting pressure on the institutions to have those evaluation, and the public university of Senegal that is 100% digital went through the evaluation, and the result was positive, and it is amongst the university that have submitted most requests for the approval of its digital programs. So it means that we can have an online training and still have the quality And of course, we are talking about the international level and African level. So the states really have to take all the legal and regulatory dispositions to ensure and guarantee the quality. So that is the response to the first question. Number two, how to use the results. It is very important. First thing, when you go through the assessment, that process in itself help in enhancing a few things within the institution. And once the decision is made, it is a public and that is important because I mean, it is important for the community, for the parents, for the students, because then they know what is the status of an institution, whether it is now approved or not by ANAQ-Sup. And another very important element is actually the monitoring of these institutions, because after the decision made by ANAQ-Sup, whether positive or negative, there is a series of measures and recommendations made so that we can continue to accompany these institutions, because even those who had a positive evaluation do have a few recommendations on how you are going to continue in sustaining that quality. So we have set up with the ministry monitoring process of these recommendations. And also at the international level, the state structures can ask questions on degrees obtained in Senegal. On a yearly basis, we do have requests that are coming from international institutions that will ask us to accredited other all right, we'll see how we can answer other questions after with Professor Mbashi. I just wanted to highlight the fact that many of the participants are commending the work that ANAQ-Sup does, and also the quality of your presentation. Thank you very much, Professor. I would like, if I may, ask Professor Bachi and Lamine Ndiaye an answer to a very interesting question that is being asked by Eduform Africa. Eduform Africa, as you may know, is actually a magazine that is very centered on issues around education, professional or vocational education, and other things that are linked to the world of education. And this magazine is very active in the promotion of moral values and the question is, what are CAMES and ANAQ-Sup doing so to have African officials that are more virtuous? Because I believe that Africans are suffering more from values than skills. So what can you do to enhance the values of African officials? And this is a question for Professor Lamine and Bachi. So who will start? Yeah, Professor Lamine, then you can continue. Yes, I will. When you look at different referential that serve as the basis for the assessment and evaluation. We take into account these characteristics. One of the very clear tools of evaluation, and regardless of the structure, we have an approach for values. When you talk about the vision and the mission, you have values in there. But of course, we do not stop there, because that could just be an intention. In the referential, we have key elements that are covering the value aspect within the institution, but also the implementation of these elements. Because for you to be able to pass on some value, you need administrative documents, you need documents on ethics within the institutions. And when we say that we are we want to see what is the degree of taking into account, but we can't hear anything, my God.
Je voudrais juste demander aux participants de bien vouloir fermer
I
le
would
micro.
like to ask the participant, Jeffy Mukora, please, can you turn off your mic?
Pardon, nous excuses. Il est en train de téléphoner, mais nous n'entendons pas.
I'm sorry. He seemed to be on the phone and he cannot hear us.
Pode fechar o seu microfone? Jeffy Mukora, pode fechar o seu microfone?
Qualquer instituição tem que mandar carta para o KNAC, presidente do KNAC, para interagir com os
Can the host mute Jeffy Mukora? The host can
Então, ele quando decide,
Can you close the microphone?
para ir para lá,
Eduardo, the host should be able to mute Jeffy Mukora. So I was saying that there's first of all the evaluation or assessment, and then there is the monitoring of all behavior that is not in line with our vision and mission. When we see an inappropriate behavior, whether in the community or within the institution, we interact with the institution, telling them that this is not in conformity with the values that we uphold in our quality assurance process. And of course, to promote values, you need an internal structure that is working on a daily basis to ensure that that is done. So we need that to promote the values, and these people have to be well trained technically, but also able to uphold the said values. Thank you very much, Professor Lamine, and I would like to apologize one more time for...
Merci, Professor.
Thank you, Professor. Professor Mbachi, can you please just contribute to this question on values? Thank you. Thank you very much. It is very important to up this issue on values. The first angle of our actions is to say that all of our actions are undertaken with partners that must beforehand have signed our code of ethics and deontology, which prescribes what should not be done and do or does indicate the sanctions for those who will be out of line or not in conformity with this code. And this code is an instance of which I am the chair, and we do have 5 members. It is operational, and we've had to put down or demote a teacher that had been promoted, but who did not respect the declaration signed. And all those who worked with him or participated in what he did were sanctioned as well. And unfortunately, we also have institutional leaders that were part of this incident. So we are still learning, but at least rather, we have that code. And of course, we would like to see our people to take a better ownership of this battle for values. The higher learning institutions, the ministries, may also present and committed so that it will be the dynamic of an entire group. And we are encouraging our ministries to actually have some codes of ethics. In Burkina Faso, for example, our the ministry rather does have a code, and in our referentials for program evaluation, we do take that into account. Now, to conclude, I wanted to respond to the person who added an element on what the colleague said. We have to say that the skills that we have are sometimes or somehow affected by this problem, but we do not have enough skills because otherwise the rate of employability would not be at this level. Thank you. Thank you very much for these last observation. Thank you, Professor. We have other questions as well, and there is another one here coming from Sao Tome and Principe. So on how to become member of CAMES, we will come back to it. Maybe we will. Yes, of course, I do welcome that request. And I believe that you can just provide Madame with our contact details, and we will surely be ready to accompany them in many ways possible. Wow, thank you. This will be a new country to increase the member state of CAMES.
Moses Abiero is the program manager dealing at the Africa Network for ECED, early childhood education, is going to share with us the experiences, the thoughts and efforts towards a continental approach, a continental framework to improve early childhood education and development. Thank you so much, Moses, for joining this sharing, this knowledge sharing webinar. We are really happy to have also this perspective. It's a completely different sector, but it is absolutely fundamental. Thank you, Moses. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Eduarda. Can you hear me from your end?
Yes, very well, and we can see the presentation also. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to Professor Mbachi and Professor Gue for that elaborate presentation. Really, as I sat here, I was trying to look at the linkage between the qualification framework and also quality assurance, the issues of morals with early childhood development. I would also want to say that I can see my senior, Dr. Jacqueline Onyango from Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. Thank you, Dr. for joining in. Basically, I also share greetings from my executive director and also staff from AFCON. So basically, my presentation will focus on situating early childhood education and development within the African Continental Qualification Framework, basically trying to link issues of teacher workforce development, the issues of professional development pathways, and also how we could be able to link this with the efforts that are ongoing. So basically, that will be my presentation. Will focus on a brief overview about Africa Early Childhood Network, situating the ECED cluster within the agenda of 2063 and CISA 1625, highlighting early childhood development cluster objectives that are relevant to the ACQF and also suggest opportunities for collaboration. So basically, this tells us that ECD is very, very important as it forms the foundation for future learning. That investment in early years provides a critical foundation for accumulation of human capital that are needed to realize child potential as a productive member of a society. We also realize that with better human capital outcomes, there are probability of higher earnings for people and also better socio-economic development of a nation. So basically, this graph just shows us that investment in early years is critical as returns on unit dollar investment invested are highest during early years. So basically, this slide just tries to give us a flavor in terms of emergence of new capabilities during early years, and these are important as the child climbs the ladder in terms of primary, secondary, and tertiary education. We've been kind of exposed to elements of higher education by Professor Mbachi and also Gue, but basically we realize that these skills that are being sharpened at higher levels, their genesis are at early years. So we say that across all domains of child development, the most critical period is between conception and 2 years. And we see that the period between conception and 5 years is critical in laying the foundation across all domains of development, including higher cognitive functions and also socio-emotional development, which are very, very key as the child grows. This demonstrates the linkage between investment in early childhood development and human capital development. We can be able to see that in terms of developmental domains, look at the darker shading that donates a critical period. In terms of receptive language, you see that it is highest between birth and around 2.5 to 3 years. In terms of expressive language, it is highest between, we can say 6 months and 5 years. In terms of higher cognitive functioning, including executive functioning, highest between maybe 1.5 years and 11 to 12 years. Then socio-emotional development starts from birth to around 10 years. So you find that by the time the child transits to primary education, that is at the age of 6, 7, 8, which is still a transitional period for early childhood development, all these critical domains of development have taken shape. So it is very, very important for us to look at ECD as a building block to future learning and education outcomes. So basically, there are efforts at the regional level to champion excellence in protecting children's rights, improving practice, and also strengthening partnership, basically to accelerate early childhood development outcomes across the continent. And Africa Early Childhood Early Childhood Network provides this platform. The network basically brings together civil society organizations, among others, government and also public institutions at national and regional levels, and works across 5 program areas, that is promoting regional advocacy, strengthening partnerships, knowledge generation, improve practice and leadership in this area. Basically, AFCAN is a privilege to coordinate the Africa Union CESA 1625 Early Childhood Cluster. And basically the cluster supports and advance efforts towards effective implementation of the objectives related to early years. And participation in the ECD cluster can be done through working groups, and we can do it through that linkage. So basically, ECD is prominent in the Agenda 2063 that calls for universal access to quality early childhood, primary and secondary education, and ensuring that no child is left behind. And therefore, CESA 1625 identifies pre-primary education as an important element in achievement of the above, but it is a neglected subsector. It also recognizes that early childhood is a pillar for future learning, sustained quality education and training, and therefore supports implementation of the continental framework objectives related to early years. The African Union Commission launched the cluster on 4th September 2018. So basically, these are the objectives of the cluster: enhancing policy, advocacy, and communication. Also intensify actions to improve equitable access to quality ECD programs and services. And this is, I think, where basically there is that intersection with the qualification framework and the discussions that we've been having in terms of enhancement or advocacy for equitable access to quality services. Then there's the element of improved quality of ECD systems, strengthening the capacity of ECD workforce, supporting relevant and comprehensive regional and national curriculum, and also enhancing quality assurance and assessment mechanisms. So you realize that the discussions that have been ongoing with Professor Gwaye and Professor Mbache really is really situated within these two objectives. But we also have related objectives, for example, improved governance and accountability, enhancement of research generation, documentation and dissemination, and also strengthening partnership. So basically, this is how the cluster is organized with the chair, Africa Union Commission. The co-chair is the government of Mauritius. AFCAN acts as the coordinator and the secretariat to the cluster. The cluster was operationalized by basically a forming of a technical committee and 4 working groups. That is policy, advocacy and communication, governance and accountability, access to quality ECD services, knowledge generation and dissemination. So each working group has a member state serving as the chair and a development partner as the convener. The chairs and conveners of each working group, as well as the AUC, AFCAN, and that node together form the technical committee. And the graph alongside provides more information about that. So basically, these are the objectives that may be relevant to the African Continental Qualification Framework Project, the ones highlighted. The one highlighted in green is very, very related. That is 3.32. You realize that one of the objectives under enhanced quality assurance and assessment mechanisms, there is need for setting up of national qualification frameworks and regional qualification frameworks to facilitate creation of multiple pathways for professional development in the ECD sector. So this is very, very much aligned to the discussions and the work of the going across the objectives, conducting a landscape analysis on ECD workforce across the region, development of regional workforce development strategy, including career path, good working and living conditions, development of a framework for implementation of strategy for continuous professional development, identification and rewarding of dedicated and innovative ECD teachers, designing and supporting adoption of regional ECD curriculum framework, strengthening national curriculum, including gender-sensitive ECD training. So you realize that these objectives are very, very relevant to the discussions that we've been having and the focus of the African Continental Qualification Framework Project. So in terms of key milestones related to ECD teacher qualification, we've conducted analysis of early learning workforce in Sub-Saharan Africa, and I'll be able to share this. We've also developed a guideline for improving quality and capacity of ECD workforce in Africa. We've been participating in teacher development cluster activities, including sharing best practices on how to improve ECD teacher qualification and professional development, and also strengthening capacity of national advocacy partners in 17 African countries to support and provide input to ECD policy development and implementation, including improvement of the ECD workforce development. Eduarda talked about the proposed Africa Union Early Childhood Education Framework that is ongoing. The discussions are ongoing. We have a draft that is being presented, that will be presented to the cluster, to the ECD cluster on 20th of July 2020. And basically, I think then we'll have a robust discussions in terms of how this will frame. But basically, the framework provides a guidance, provides resources and tools that will help African countries and AU member states basically address service delivery gaps in the ECD subsector. It also provides a number of case studies and also best practices that could be could be learned from. So basically, that is the efforts that are ongoing around that. So in terms of opportunities for collaboration with the ACQF project, basically there is need for the dissemination of the African guidelines for improving quality and capacity of ECD workforce in Africa. Maybe as we go along in terms of discussions, we could find a place where we could piggyback on the ongoing efforts of the ACQF to disseminate this guideline. We're also thinking of conducting analysis on the extent of integration of ECD into national qualification frameworks. I know there are quite a number of efforts that have been done across the region in terms of development of national qualification frameworks and also attempts to develop regional qualification frameworks. But it is also important, as we know, and we've observed, that early childhood forms the foundation. There is need for us also to look at the extent of integration of ECD into national qualification framework. So this is an opportunity where we could collaborate and then see how best we could improve on the same. Then there is also the development of regional workforce development strategy, including career path, continuous development, good working and living conditions, which is really captured under ECD cluster objective 3.12. And then lastly, setting up of national qualification frameworks and regional qualification frameworks to facilitate the creation of multiple pathways for professional development. So basically, this may not be a standalone kind of national qualification framework, but if ECD could be integrated within the national qualification framework, I think that will be suffice. And also in terms of the ACQF, then we need to find maybe space for ECD so that this sector and the professions and professionals are not left behind. So basically, that is what I wanted to share in a nutshell in terms of the relationship between ACQF and early childhood development and efforts at the regional through the ECD cluster. And basically, this is a work in progress, opportunities for collaboration as we improve education across all levels, from early childhood to higher levels. Otherwise, I think that marks the end of my presentation. I'm looking forward for an interactive session where we could have question and answer. Thank you so much, Eduardo. Thank you so much, colleagues, for this opportunity as we find ways of linking early childhood development with efforts across all levels of education and across stakeholder engagements. Thank you.
Eduarda, you're muted.
Thank you so much. Asante sana, Moses, for this presentation. And I'd like to emphasize and really appreciate the very positive spirit, let's say, that you have brought, that you have formulated, expressed through your presentation, and this call for finding common space, opening up qualifications frameworks to ECD, finding the necessary linkages with ACQF, and for already pinpointing those areas, those objectives, those lines of work of the cluster, of the ECD cluster, and of the network that could be of interest and can be further developed with ACQF. And since you are a member of ACQF advisory group, I think it will be really a very the excellent place, the right place to discuss further these links and how to connect all these dots. And I have to say that in my previous experience, I have never thought about this linkage. And so you are bringing in something so fresh. And I think we have really to understand how to do it. That's exactly about continuous development from cradle further on throughout life. That's lifelong learning. And thank you very much, Moses, for this. So colleagues, now
Thank
we
you
will
so
have,
much.
thank you. It's really very refreshing, your presentation. Thank you so much. So colleagues, now we have another 20 minutes more or less to engage in some additional questions. And I'd like then to again share my screen. I know that there is still one question in the chat box which we did not yet discuss. And this was a question by Jean. I don't know whether it is Jean Adotevi, maybe. And his question was very interesting. He addressed to the two colleagues, to the two speakers, Professor Lamine Gueye and Professor Mbachi, representing then quality assurance in higher education, and asked whether quality assurance of education in general and TVET, etc., could also be somehow catered and addressed through the tools, experiences, and policies that you have been developing at CAMES, and I guess also ANAQ-Sup as well. I think that ANAQ-Sup is already cooperating with TVET, national TVET, in matters of quality assurance and also qualifications framework. So this is a question we can still discuss. But if you don't mind, let us take a look at some questions that we prepared and we have shared already yesterday with our speakers. And so these are the questions. So in French, yes, questions on quality assurance of higher education. And I will also show the slide in English. So, les défis et surtout l'opportunité des grandes transformations globales en cours, dont notamment les transitions numériques, vertes, technologiques, sociales. Quelles sont les opportunités et les défis pour le renouveau de l'enseignement supérieur? Et quelle est la vision du CAMES, donc à niveau régional, aussi que l'ANAQ-Sup, à niveau national, à ce sujet? Bon, donc, il y a aussi une autre question qui concerne surtout les besoins en formation continue tout au long de la vie, lifelong learning. Donc, il y a une urgence et une échelle massive de besoins en formation continue dans ce monde qui change très vite. Donc, et ça concerne tous les niveaux, tout type de compétences métiers. Quel type de réponses sont envisageables dans le contexte de l'espace CAMES, aussi du Sénégal, pour faire face à ces besoins changeants, très diversifiés? Est-ce que la flexibilité, la digitalisation, l'innovation des formations et des nouvelles certifications telles que les micro-certificats font partie de la panoplie du menu possible de réponse à ces besoins urgents et massifs? Et finalement, une question surtout pour l'ANAQ-Sup, quelle est la place des micro-certificats dans l'écosystème de l'assurance qualité de l'enseignement supérieur? C'est-à-dire, avez-vous une politique d'ouverture envers ces nouveaux types de certification? Et si vous voulez, donc, messieurs, professeur Mbachi, professeur Lamine Gueye, la parole, vous avez donc la parole pour engager ces questions. Et si vous permettez, puisque vous avez déjà les questions, je vais montrer donc le slide en anglais pour que tout le monde voit la traduction en anglais. So, professeur Mbachi, voulez-vous partager avec nous vos points de vue, votre vision sur ces questions, sur ces grands défis et opportunités aussi? Merci, professeur. Peut-être que vous devez ouvrir votre microphone.
Oui, oui.
Merci.
Merci bien. J'ai regroupé ma réponse de deux manières. Alors, par rapport à la première interrogation, organisme intergouvernemental, le CAMES se présente comme un cadre d'intégration, accélérateur de l'appropriation des réformes auprès de ses pays membres. Après un état de lieu, comme vous l'avez vu, de son fonctionnement depuis un demi-siècle, le CAMES s'est doté successivement de 2 plans stratégiques de développement quasiment identiques qui déclinent sa vision. Cette vision impulse des dynamiques pour que les institutions d'enseignement supérieur et de recherche, IESR,
This dynamic it gives impulsion so that we have a human capital which pushes on the growth and prosperity of the society in its plan. The culture of digital culture together with quality assurance plays a cross-cutting role that brings the renewal of higher education, research, and innovation. So to arrive there, we have, in terms of model here, to duplicate after adjustment when need be, and also to avail to the higher education program silhouette and quality assurance of CAMES. So without going back to my presentation, Silhouette program of CAMES organizes legally or the processes of dematerialization of activities of CAMES. In the same way, it is promoting the uses of digital platforms with all its advantages in the area of education and training, research, innovation, organization of knowledge, archiving, and communication, which are the vectors of the change. The program of quality assurance has as an objective to implement and disseminate the culture in a global village. It is constituting a guarantee which secures all the processes, old and new, and ensures all the stakeholders by creating a climate of trust. So we think that the usage of digital platform is become important, and also the emergency of COVID-19 has shown us that this is a time to be conscious and to start afresh. Since 2012, CAMES and also with the actors that participate to these programs, the results are there. Without false modesty, we can confess that the program Silhouette of CAMES, together with a quality assurance programs, CAMES has given a new breath to the institution and to all its institutions. Now, when it comes to the second question of the agency and the need of lifelong learning, I have as well answered to the digitization of certificates. And my view is that the step we took from LMD to CAMES shows that the country has not yet drawn advantages from this system, that we need a new departure, taking as a challenge the weakness that we have noted. So among the challenges, we can say that the lifelong learning is important, and we need to advocate for this on African space, where we always thought that the social ascension, it is done on the linear training with reference to respect and follow, most time spent in the higher learning institution where we get the degrees. So today, the advantages in the demographic context of African population and with the higher rate of joblessness of university graduate. So, and we need to encourage the lifelong learning instead of doctorate studies and master studies which lead to joblessness. So the concept of lifelong learning will allow for different reasons to come back and strengthen the competency of lifelong learning. And this training can lead to the certification of value added or to a degree coupled with professional experience. Now, to get to this, CAMES think that the use of the two model as learning process is very important. Now, CAMES has developed the reference and accreditation to obtain diplomas or certificate in by models in attendance or on distance learning. So we need to speak this, and CAMES is engaged on the continental level on its program of certification. So the mapping which was taken and the thinking that will follow will lead to the diagnosis that will be presented to the head of state of CAMES in this year in Dakar. And this diagnosis will inspire the directives on how to deal with this issue of competency together with the need, social and ecosystem and register of skills for the CAMES espace to train young people to the self-employment and to the employment. This is all I can answer on behalf of the institution to these questions and concerns.
Merci beaucoup, Professeur Mbachi.
Thank you, Professor Mbachi.
Pour votre réponse très, très élaborée, stratégique.
Your answer.
Maintenant, je voudrais demander au professeur Lamine Gay, s'il vous plaît, aussi partager avec nous vos points de vue.
You can share with us your view on this. Thank you, Edward. For the first question, means the taking into consideration the challenges of world transformations to the digital world. I can say that ANACSUP is conscious of the need of transformation on the pedagogical level, which will also bring on the governance and infrastructure change on the higher learning level. We have taken into consideration the necessity of transformation as a challenge. And as well, in our processes and in our relationship with the Ministry of Higher Education. I've said that in terms of our procedure, we have put a reference in place that addresses the training in physical training or distance learning, which means that informally, we have no constraint to do an assessment of distance learning institutions and to assess the program which is given on the distance learning. Now, in our principle as such, we also, on ANACSUP, we speak about equal dignity, equal unity. So between the private and the public education or institutions, and as well equal unit between the distance learning and attendance learning. So on the quality level, these two pedagogical approach is equal. There is no issue of acknowledging it. So it is equal. Even if the quality of education is given by distance, the quality must be secured. So it is equal, and that aspect is very important. Elsewhere, the coming of COVID-19 has strengthened us in this idea because we have shared with the Ministry of Higher Education on the necessity to increase on the digital education. And when we proposed this, we were before COVID. It was just because of the social understanding in the pedagogical approach. So we looking at important social constraint. We wanted to create better opportunities of learning for students. So the COVID-19 has only strengthened the issues. We also noted that the institutions that did not have a higher level, they had difficulties. They had to assess and adapt. So this question is taken into consideration at ANACSUP. We have even written to the authorities in charge to take these pilot programs. So for the second question, the lifelong training or learning, our approach to this question, we have taken it on the first one, because the need of lifelong learning is important. We have also proposed digital tools in order to answer to this, because the numbers of the people who are employed, but it is difficult to give them space in the universities that are already saturated. So if we do transformation on our pedagogical approach, and we offer a possibility of lifelong long learning, it will work better, because some people have gone beyond the age of going to the universities, or because of professionalism, they need to continue learning. So this is going back to the digital approach, pedagogical approach, so that we can continue to offer them learning. So we also need now to answer to the training. So because to insert them, because they're already working, so training should not be a challenge. And also another aspect is the legal framework, because few countries have legislation that can escort and accompany this. So that's why the system LMB, if Senegal finishes with the legal framework, it will be easier that ANACSUP could join LMB and the legal framework on the valorization of experience. So this is a challenge which must be looked into at all levels. So this is, in nutshell, it is easy for Eduarda to speak on the third question, micro-certification, and this is also open to all. So as the state has given us the mission to manage the quality of higher education. It is very important. What we have resolved now is the quality in the learning institution, but we have not yet been able to control the micro certificate. Now, through the quality of the institution, we are able to deal with some of these elements. And there's also a demand on this micro certificate.
Merci.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, professeur Lamine Gaïfou, pour vos réponses.
Thank you, professor.
Et aussi pour, enfin, le fait que vous avez très bien mentionné la question du cadre juridique, cadre légal, politique.
About the legal framework, which is very important.
Thank you for your response.
Et la question des micro-certificats ou bien
touched on a number of issues. And I believe that for the micro-certificate issue, that is something that we will be able to touch on.
Merci, professor.
Thank you, professor.
And now we also have two questions to Moses. Of course, these questions relate to early childhood education. And from a point of view of early childhood development stage periods. So Moses, here you have two challenging questions, but you have started already replying during your presentation. So the first one is early childhood development stage or period and lifelong learning of individuals. So please, could you share your views on the links between these two elements? So from one side, early childhood education and lifelong learning. How can early childhood education better prepare children for learning to learn as a competence, let's say a skill that is inherent, and for a culture of learning throughout life? This is one question. Then another question relates to adaptability. So actually this question came up yesterday during a webinar, international, that actually, where this question was addressed. So in many regions and countries globally, a top skill on demand by employers is adaptability. So beyond the technical skills and all the other soft skills that we know, this adaptability or ability to adapt to change is appearing in all sorts of surveys and studies as highly demanded by companies, employers. So adaptability meaning flexibility, openness, agility. And from the conversations, so analysts believe that this is a skill that must be developed and nurtured from early childhood development stage. So what are your views on this matter, and how can early childhood education better prepare for skills for the future? Because the future is already here. Thank you. Moses, the floor is yours. You can.
Merci beaucoup.
Yes, merci.
Merci beaucoup, Edward. I think these are good questions in terms of really placing us as policymakers and practitioners to think of early childhood as the foundation for higher levels of learning. So basically, to address this question, I will refer you to a presentation, a slide that I made on various domains of child development and the critical window when the children are acquiring this. So it is very, very important for us, one, to think of the quality of early learning experiences that children have. For example, we know that both receptive and productive language, the foundation is around infancy stage between 0 to 2 years, and then all the way to 5 years. So basically getting children the opportunity to interact with the language, caregiver-child interaction, even before birth and also during this early stage is very, very important. And then transitioning the same to preschool. That is very, very important in terms of one, helping children to expand their language and helping children to know how to use the language to improve on other skills, for example, social interaction. So it is very, very important for us to think of ECD as a holistic kind of system that looks at all areas of child development, and then as a building block to future learning and also development. So when we also look at lifelong learning, we cannot talk about lifelong learning without looking at the foundation, because basically that is where it all starts in terms of knowing how to learn. During this stage, children are very curious. Many people say that they are scientists because they love to explore the environment. They want to know more about the environment. They want to discover, and that is a skill that should be nurtured all the way. And ECD provides that platform for nurturing that foundational skill of exploration, the skill of discovery, the skill of wanting to learn. And therefore you find that it is very much linked with learning to learn and also lifelong learning. So basically, in summary, the second question, in many regions and countries globally, a top skill on demand by employers is adaptability, very key. And if you refer back to what I presented, is that the socio-emotional development aspect really kind of starts from when the child is born to around 12 years. So you see, so if we lose this stage in terms of a child knowing how to interact with others, how to differ his interests and needs, how to respond to various needs, how to address people, talking about the issues of moral and values, that is the stage where these are formed. So it is very, very important for us to look at early childhood as the foundation for holistic development of the child at that level. And this is linked to other levels of education, other levels of child development, including adolescent, early adulthood, and then all the way to late adulthood or old age. So, but basically 95%, that is what brain scientists say, 95% of the child's brain is well developed by age 9 to 10. So you see, so between 95, 100, 10 to old age. So, so that is how ECD and science for ECD is very, very important in linking us with lifelong learning, human capital, development outcomes, and basically socio-economic development of a nation and the whole region and global. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moses, for this reflection and for bringing us back to some elements that really come from science, and for linking the learning to learn, the development, the holistic development as a foundation. So I think these are very important elements, and we are very happy to be able to interact with you further, also in the context of ACQF advisory group, and see how some of these elements can be taken into account in the construction of the African Continental Qualifications Framework as well. Thank you again. So colleagues, I don't know if there are any questions. if participants have questions, I see, yes, there are some questions. Oh, yeah. So let me say that there is only one final question that was not yet addressed, and it is the question by Jean Adotevi that I already mentioned earlier. Donc, c'est une question qui vient de la part de Monsieur Jean
It's a
Adotevi
question asked by Jean Adotteli.
et qui est adressée surtout au professeur Lamine et aussi au professeur
addressed
Mbaki,
particularly to Professor Lamine, but Professor
qui
Mbachy could also
concerne l'assurance qualité dans les autres sous-secteurs de l'éducation. Donc, comment
quality assurance in other subsector
dans
of
l'éducation
the
générale,
education.
école, formation professionnelle peuvent bénéficier, disons, des expériences des
How can we benefit from the experiences
dans le
of
cadre de l'enseignement
others
supérieur.
so that we
Que
can
pouvez-vous
continue to
vous allier, disons, dans une approche un peu plus holistique d'assurance
what
qualité
is that
pour la formation
holistic
et éducation
approach
tout au long
of
de la vie.
quality
Voilà
assurance
peut-être une petite
that
réformulation.
could
C'est quelque chose
help
qui nous tient
in
beaucoup à cœur, professeur
the
Mbachy et professeur Lamine,
lifelong
dans le cadre du
education? I
cadre
believe
continental
this
africain
is a very important
que l'assurance
question,
qualité
dear
puisse
professors.
être holistique aussi.
How can quality assurance be holistic, and how can we, in a very coherent and articulated manner, enlarge that and have it in every sector of development of the child? All right, I'll give the floor to Professor Mbachy, then I will answer.
We finish.
I believe that quality assurance should be a concern, a daily concern in everything we do. And most particularly when we talk about issues of learning or issues of transfer of knowledge. I believe that what is needed is to create ways and means
Je pense qu'il faut que...
Eduardo, you can mute him.
Donc je disais qu'il faudrait...
So I was saying that we should find ways and means to create exchanges so that we can have some expertise and know-how transfers. But we should not think that quality assurance can only be dealt with at the highest level without dealing with it at the lowest level, even the primary level. We should actually create these exchange platforms. I see in Gabon, for example, they are establishing, and I believe the texts have already been adopted. They are establishing a framework that deals with higher education and national education on quality assessment and accreditation of degrees. And these are these type of spaces that we need. Thank you, Professor Mbachy, for your reflections. And I believe that these platforms of exchanges could be very important when we talk about knowledge sharing. Now, Professor Lamine, can you help us with a few ideas on how other education sub-sectors could benefit from the experiences of higher education in quality assurance? Eduardo, thank you. I believe that this is a very critical issue when you work in a quality of a higher education, and then you understand that there is need for quality in education prior to higher education, whether kindergarten or pre-primary, primary, secondary. I believe that it will be not logical to think that if we solve the issue of quality assurance in higher education, that will also solve the issues at lower levels. We need to establish what we can call one-stop shop for quality assurance. And we are now having that even in corporations. And now in instances that are regulating training, these quality assurance elements should be there. So we already have at Amaxub the framework and the dialogue that will allow us to transfer the experience that we have. Now, for national education in Senegal, we also have one package on quality education. Of course, it's not the same approach as higher education. But we have to understand we do not always need a formal evaluation. We should maybe look at the different strategies, and we are now reflecting on those. A few days ago, we were in one workshop that the Ministry of National Education had organized in the project that we have to see how we can really expand the issue of quality assurance from primary to secondary education. We should have that framework, and now we need to have the appropriate text. And Eduardo, I believe even at the continental level, it will be important to have this kind of a framework. Many of the countries do have their quality assurance, and we should not only take into account higher education, but also basic education. Thank you very much, Professor. That is very important. I believe it is an element that is dear to us in our project. We need this global approach that actually includes all subsectors in a very coherent manner, even if there are some specificities. Thank you very much, all participants, all those are still with us. I believe that we had a very enriching webinar. We have made a number of interesting discoveries, and also in the activities of the African framework and I believe that these webinars become platform of sharing, if I may borrow the expression by Professor Mbachi, and we will continue. These will always be exceptional moment of discovery and enrichment. Today, we also focused our attention on partnerships, and in every presentation, this issue was highlighted in a very important manner, the importance of sharing and partnership, very different types of partnership. We also spoke about knowledge sharing, and every presentation was telling us about so much effort. There's quite a number of referentials, tools, policy documents, experiences, and all this variety of tools and instruments. And sometimes some countries are trying to start and would like to have access to all this knowledge and tools, all these bank of knowledge and good practice that does exist, and that could help us to have what I could call an African pride of so many positive things that are being done and that are contextualized in the different institutions of the continent. I wanted to say also that this project has been very interesting and has allowed us to know the viewpoint of the early education sector on the many interfaces with the different frameworks of qualification and accreditation and certification. And to close, I'll say that we are going to have the next webinar on the 22nd of July at the same time. And I believe that now we are going to go towards other themes still based on the experiences of different countries or organizations. We are going to have an exchange or sharing between the reforms coming from vocational or professional how can these two elements create synergies? And we will have the very practical example or case of Mozambique, and we are going to have the National Authority of Vocational Training, and that will give us an idea of how these two components are interacting in a very positive manner. And we are going to look also at the different repertoires of accreditation and certification. And we are trying one way or another to go towards this idea of the golden triangular certification framework, and then recognition. And I would like also to greet Professor Baku, that has been able to join us finally, and that was very busy with another meeting. So this idea of the golden triangle, he is the one who presented it to us during one of our webinars. So Professor Bakur will help us and take the floor in our next webinar on this golden triangle, and this could help us to advance the recognition of our different qualification and certification, and of course that will lead to transfer of skills. Professor Bakor, do you want to say a word? Of course, thank you very much, Eduarda. Thank you very much to all our participants. I believe that I've really missed a very good opportunity to learn. I believe the webinar was extremely rich, and quite a number of colleagues were here to positively contribute to the enhancement of quality assurance in the African continent. Thank you very much, Eduarda. Well, thank you, Professor Baku. Always a pleasure to have you. So, dear colleagues, as usual, I would like you to, just put on your cameras so that we can have a group photo for this webinar.
Professor Mbachi, merci.
Thank you, Professor Mbachi.
Oh, I see that Ida is also with us. Ida, thank you so much for being. Oh, and I see my very dear Miriam also smiling. Thank you very much.
Hey, Eduarda, good to see you.
Good to see you. So we stay in touch and we have to continue meeting. There are so many new colleagues in this meeting today. Thank you so much for being here, and apologies for some small hiccups with the interpretation or technical. But in any case, as you know, all the presentations are already on the web page of this event. And of course, the video, the recording will also be available. Thank you so much. Let us take another picture. Ida, a próxima vez, a Ida vai estar em primeiro lugar.
The next time, Ida will be in the first place.
From Cape Verde to have joined. We are very happy to see you all. Heidi, hello good to see you. And Maxwell, always, Ghana is always with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Maxwell.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. So we stay in touch and we will send you then, but you already have the program, all the links to join. We will just send a reminder. And next time, please, we should have Sakwa with us to present the register. So the database, the learners and qualifications database, as well as Kenya National Qualifications Authority will also present its own. We will be in touch. Thank you so much, colleagues, and stay safe.
Bye.
Good continuation. Thank you.